I feel we need to put our heads around. And for one of the things that I find interesting is this particular kind of engagement relates to public policy issues, and I'm quite excited to be part of this. And it fits in very nicely with the vision of that institute.
Thank you very much. Now, please, can you tell us about this loan being negotiated with China to construct railways, principally by the Minister of Transport, Rotimi Amechi? I'm sure you must know about the loan. Can you tell us what you know about the loan, please?
Well, first of all, let me say a couple of things for clarity. One of the things that we tend to do in Nigeria is sometimes we leave the substance and begin to do politics. And politics has a way of clouding over certain important issues. Let me start by talking about the process of contracting a foreign loan. First is that before you talk about getting a loan, there will be a user ministry that will say, I need this money. If you need that money, you approach the Federal Ministry of Finance to help you articulate the needs as well as make the necessary outreach. But before you do that, there are a number of stages that you will get. The first thing is for the debt management office to do what they call debt sustainability analysis, to see whether if we add that stock to our existing portfolio of debt, whether the country can survive. So when that analysis is done and the DMO tells the Minister of Finance that we can actually take additional loan, then it will take it to the next level. The next level is to engage the lenders in terms of detailed discussions as to the requirements, what they need to do, and for you to continue with the discussion, you let the lenders have an idea of the parameters that have been set by the fiscal responsibility law. The fiscal responsibility law says clearly any loan that you contract must be at a maximum level of interest rate of no more than 2.5%. That's what the law says. So that's a process. So you go that, check that it fits into the scheme as provided by the law. After you've done that and you feel comfortable, then the president writes to National Assembly to ask for permission for that loan to be taken. When approval is given by National Assembly approving that the loan should be contracted, the Federal Ministry of Finance will now go into proper negotiation with the lenders. At the end of that negotiation process, and let me explain, the negotiation of a loan is a tedious process. Perhaps occasionally you may hear that there was a large contingent of Nigerian civil servants who have gone to China or who have gone to US or some place to negotiate for loan. What normally happens is that in the negotiating team, you have Federal Minister of Finance to lead. You have the implementing agency representatives. You have the legal advisor of the Federal Minister of Finance in the team. You have the legal advisor from Ministry of Justice on the team. And you have other stakeholders, including representatives of the Debt Management Office. So by the time you put all these people together, you have a large team. So that's perhaps what explains occasionally you have a large team going to negotiate. So it's a process. Then, at the point of negotiation, it's called line by line, word for word negotiation. So you go through the proposal from the lender in terms of the contract. You negotiate it line by line. It is a tedious process. Sometimes you can spend an hour arguing over one word, saying, no, we don't want this. They say, no, it has to be there. And so it is a very tedious process. It's a very detailed process. So after you've done that negotiation, you bring it back. Before you come back, you have minutes, agreed minutes of that negotiation. In other words, you initial it, they initial it, so that there's nothing else foreign that will be introduced to the loan once it's been signed. Now, you take it back to Nigeria, you present it to Federal Executive Council. The Federal Executive Council will approve. After the approval of the Federal Executive Council, you notify the lenders that this loan has now been approved by Federal Executive Council. Once they have received the notification, the lenders will now ask for legal opinion from the Attorney General himself, not his advisors now, from the Attorney General. He gives what is called no objection. It is that no objection that makes loan effective. So the process is very tedious. And that is how all loans are procured. So I am not sure at what stage we had deviation in what is currently playing out in the public domain now.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Prof, for explaining the process before it becomes effective in Nigeria. Let me now show our audience the issue. This clause, this loan we are talking about, the clause that is the bone of contention. I will share this screen. Then for us to really understand the particular, I don't know whether, is the audience seeing the screen now, please? Prof, you can answer on their behalf because they're all muted.
I can see it, yes.
Yes, so if you are seeing it, that means every other person is seeing it. Now, the controversial clause in the agreement signed by the Federal Minister of Finance on behalf of Nigeria and the Export-Import Bank of China, who is the lender, of September 15, 2018, provides that the borrower, that is Nigeria, hereby irrevocably waives any immunity on the grounds of sovereign or otherwise for itself or its property in connection with any arbitration proceeding pursuant to Article 85 thereof, with enforcement of any arbitral awards pursuant thereto, except for the military assets and diplomatic assets. Please, Prof, are you able to explain this clause to us, or do we leave it to the lawyers?
No. I can talk to it.
Right.
There's a history to that. You probably, I don't know whether you are aware that in 1975, the Central Bank of Nigeria issued what they call an instrument called letter of credit. You remember? I don't know whether you remember, for the importation of cement. As a matter of fact, the cement was for the construction of army barracks. So they issued a letter of credit. That letter of credit was what we call irrevocable letter of credit. Now, somewhere along the line, there was a mass importation of cement at that time into Nigeria, to the extent that at any given point in time, you had a murder of ships at the port, and there was massive delay. The delay cost shippers a lot of demurrage. Now, in the process of this delay in clearing goods because of massive documentations, the military government, somewhere along the line, decided to ban the use of import license and all those things. They did. When they did that, CBN at the time cancelled their letter of credit. Now, you cancel letter of credit for a transaction that you guaranteed, a transaction that has been done on the part of the suppliers, and the shipment was already in Nigeria or in the port, awaiting clearance. So they said no. We have a policy. The government said we should cancel. We have canceled, and they said no, you can't do that. And they took Nigeria, CBN, to court in England, and the then judge in the Court of Appeal, famous Lord Denny, then ruled that there is nothing like immunity and there's not like sovereignty. Once a country takes itself into a marketplace, you must abide by the rules of the marketplace. You can't come to the market, price onions, you collect it for whatever reason, you are not able to pay. You say, no, no, I'm a sovereign nation. They say, no, no, no. The rule was simple, that you can't talk about sovereignty when you are in the marketplace. So that was a landmark judgment in international law. And that actually led the government of the United Kingdom to quickly pass law on this issue of sovereign immunity. Now, I am only trying to extrapolate from there.
Yes.
We have been dealing with China for a long time. If you look at the history of China, we have, I think, about 11 ongoing projects funded by the Chinese government. So what they now do is to say, look, you are here, you are in the marketplace to borrow money. You are not coming here to borrow money as somebody with immunity. Nobody will deal with you for a start. If you are coming and say, you know, I'm immune, then what claim will the lender have on you or on their asset? So what normally happens, and that is what has happened elsewhere in the world, is that they insert the clause that we have the rights to go after that project which we are funding if you breach the payment. If you breach the payment conditions and you are no longer able to pay, we can take over that asset, run it over a period of time, recover our money, and then we'll leave your asset for you as long as we have taken our money back. That is, to the best of my knowledge, the issue of sovereignty. So, but when I read in the media about us ceding our sovereignty, it is completely out of place ab initio, because we're already in the marketplace. Once you're in the marketplace, you are there as somebody who can sue and who can be sued. So that is my understanding of it.
Thank you very much. I can see people raising their hand, and I will say in the next 10 minutes, we'll be allowing people to ask questions. But now, I'm the only person asking questions for now. Sorry. We'll allow you to ask questions very soon. Now, Prof, my problem is this. We know about sovereign immunity, who it applies to. That it doesn't apply to commercial transactions. If that were so, if that were given, why would it be expressly provided here like this in this loan that is being negotiated? Why make it so particular? Why insert that clause if what you have given, if what you have explained is given regarding commercial transactions and commercial immunity?
No, it may not be given. Sometimes people forget, because it's a new thing in international law. This issue of sovereign immunity is a new thing. So people may want to be extraordinarily careful by putting everything on the table so that you know that this is there. So it is nothing unusual and it's nothing new. And I don't think I've not had the privilege of reviewing all the agreements to know whether the same clause has been in all the agreements, but I don't think there's anything unusual there.
Okay, Prof, thank you. Then apart from this issue of sovereign immunity, are you particularly worried about the volume of loans that Africa and Nigeria also is accumulating from China? Does that worry you? The volume of loans we are taking from China?
Let me say that, like I said, there are processes for these things. it is not an individual thing. It is not about whether I am comfortable or not. It is about a process that is approved by law. One of the things that the World Bank and other international organizations advocate is that you should not have loan over and above certain threshold, which is called debt sustainability. In other words, is it sustainable for you to take that debt? Now, we have a debt management office. It is their responsibility, and I did mention it earlier, to do the debt sustainability analysis and advise the Minister of Finance to say, look, yes, we've done the analysis, we can take it. It is sustainable, we can pay based on the parameters that have been established in law. Now, once that is done, the Minister of Finance will advise both the user ministry and Federal Executive Council that we've done the analysis, it is sustainable. So that is the process. I am not sure exactly the quantum of money that we have taken from China as a proportion of our debt. But what I can tell you is that our domestic debt is a lot more than our foreign debt. I'm sure you are aware of that.
Well, so, yes, there is argument that the sustainability ratio, our loan sustainability ratio relative to our gross domestic product is still within the affordable threshold. Now, yes. But what would you have to say with regards to people who also say that when we compare ourselves with the loan sustainability ratio of United Kingdom and United States, for instance, that the interest we pay on our loan is higher than the interest paid by these developed countries because of the risk factor. And so even though we can argue that the debt sustainability ratio of Nigeria is still low, but with regard to the percentage of our own GDP that we devote to service the interest of this road, that is still high. And therefore we should be careful and not only talk about debt sustainability and all those arguments. What do you have to respond to that?
Well, I agree that we should be careful. The first one is the technical, legalistic, official position. The second half of it is the common sense position. And the common sense says we should be careful. We should be careful so that we don't increase the debt service ratio. So that is common sense. But I am saying that from an official standpoint that is guided by the fiscal responsibility law, are we out of line? The answer is no. Are we borrowing too much from a layman's point of view? The answer is yes. So you have to balance the two, both in terms of the law and as well as what you feel intuitively.
Okay, let me attempt to play this video now. I don't know whether I have the technical expertise about the fear people have with regards to all this. But let me see if I can play the video, and then I will have you to comment on that.
Okay.
Pakistan, Malaysia, Laos, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Egypt, Kenya, and South Africa. The same thing is happening, and many countries are struggling to pay back Chinese loans. If you look closely, all these infrastructure projects like highways, ports, and bridges connect to China through the sea or through the land to form something far bigger, far more powerful than just a bridge, a new Silk Road. The world is already made by China, and I think slowly it will be owned by China. Don't get me wrong, building bridges, ports, highways, and airports is a great thing for the people in the country, but they come at a very high cost. And when these countries can't pay back the loans, these countries will lose their powers. One thing my parents had taught me is that there's no such thing as a free lunch or a free ride. So if we're not careful with our money or other people's money, then we better start learning Chinese. Jiao, Zhou, Xian.
I don't know because the video did not start showing from the beginning, but I believe our guests get the sense of what this guy is saying. Prof, did you agree with this guy? What is your take on this video?
Well, the audio wasn't fantastic, but
oh, okay.
But I can hazard a guess in what he was saying. I think the critical thing is that we have to be very careful as a country, the extent that we are going in borrowing from a particular source. You know, as they say, it is easier to borrow. What is more difficult is paying back. And the more we overstretch ourselves, we become vulnerable to shocks, external shocks, like happened recently with the COVID-19. Nobody would have anticipated that such a shock will come in our lifetime. So you tend to get some unforeseen challenges like that. So my take is that we need to be careful. I am not speaking for government. I'm not defending borrowing by government. I'm just explaining some basic principles that you wanted to know about. One is the issue of sovereign immunity. And secondly, whether we are within the borrowing limits. Those are two critical points that matter to me at this point in time.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more important than explaining the things the way they are, rather than trying to jazz it up so that it will be quite exciting.
Exactly. Now, my final question to you, Prof, is before I allow other people to ask their question is this. So basically, China loans. Is Nigeria ceding her sovereignty to China?
I don't see how that can happen. I mean, I just cannot imagine, unless, of course, you know something that I don't know. But I don't see how we have Chinese prime minister come here to run Nigeria or something, or we become Chinese and we start speaking and learning Mandarin and all that. So I don't really, I think it's really, we're stretching it. We're stretching the argument. And sometimes in stretching the argument, it causes a lot of excitement. But I would describe it as negative excitement, in the sense that it may well be misleading people from the facts. So we really need to be careful as independent analysts to present information as accurately as possible.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. Now we'll take questions from our listeners. I have Columbo, but please, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question, and Prof is ready.
Thank you, Mr. Elombah, and thank you, Prof, for this opportunity. Basically, it's hard for an average Nigerian out of emotional attachment to believe that it will ever occur where we have to give up our sovereignty. It's an emotional thing, but you know, emotionally and legality sometimes they don't come hand in hand. There are two divergent issues. If you perform something that is not legal and you go to court, the court care less if you are sleeping outside. If you have to pay, you have to pay. And that's what it is. If they'll take your house for you for them to get a settlement, that's exactly what will happen. In the case of Nigeria borrowing loan, we in diaspora, we know basically it's almost a given that Nigeria will not be able to pay back that loan. Having said that, why do we say that? Because what is the economic generation from that loan? Or do you get a loan? You get a loan to build a church, and then you go to your social gathering hall to get money to repay back the loan. We know that the project in question being funded cannot generate any money to pay back the loan. So the money must come from somewhere to be paid because nobody has done that calculation. If Nigeria was to take the loan to provide steady electricity, I can bet you it's almost a guarantee that Nigeria will be able to pay back the loan. Also, we found out that before a loan from China commences, a portion of that loan has been spent. Everything you're dealing with them is done in Mandarin. You're not privy to the tenet of all the agreement that is involved. We've seen that happen in many countries. And we believe Nigeria is too educated and too enlightened to be caught up in that web. Having said that, what is the essential need for this particular project that will warrant that Nigeria will go all out to get a loan to create that project? If it is that necessary, that means the project should be able to pay back the loan. In this case, can the loan be paid back from that project?
Okay. Thank you very much for your question. I will try as much as possible not to be as emotional as you are in analyzing the issue. What I'd like to say is this: the lender has obligation to do due diligence on the borrower to ensure that the borrower has a capacity to pay for the loan that is being borrowed. If you go to the bank to say, I need money, the first thing the bank would do is to say, how would you pay back the loan? You say that I want to build a house with the loan. Of course, the house can be used as collateral, but in most cases, lenders will say, no, we need more than the collateral because of the process of conversion and the delays in that process. So that is what normally happens. If you go to any country to say you want to borrow loan, they have a duty to ensure that you can pay. That is one. Two, and over the last few years or so, lenders have stopped giving loans on what you call social investments. Lenders now give loans strictly for physical commercial projects that have the capacity to pay back. One of the things that you may or may not know is that the Chinese loan is always attractive to most African countries because of the moratorium period. Often, if you borrow money today, you don't have to start paying for another 10 years. That gives you some leeway to organize yourself and arrange for the project to begin to pay for itself. So those are some of the challenges or some of the excitements that push people towards China. If you go to World Bank, you get maybe the same moratorium or less, and they have a limited pool because World Bank is catering for the whole world, and therefore they have envelope for either your country or for the continent, and that is what happens. So what you get is a function of a fraction of the available pool. So I would say that the capital projects that are being funded from China loan are supposed to pay for themselves.
Good.
If you look at the railway, whether it's Lagos Ibadan, whether it's Abuja Kaduna, whether it's the airport and other infrastructure, the the dam project, these are projects that are supposed to pay for themselves. So it is in the interest of the lender to ensure that you are able to pay. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure that the government of China, in their own wisdom, will be looking forward to annexing Nigeria. I don't think that will be in their interest, but that's another subject altogether.
Sorry, Prof. I'm not taking too long of a time, but we know that China is not looking forward to annexing Nigeria. But there is something Nigeria has that they want. Everybody knows that internationally, of course.
What is
There
that?
is something which is number one is LNG. They want Nigeria's LNG at all means. It's not a secret. It's known to almost everybody in diaspora. So what I'm saying in effect is this. What is the managerial level for this money that's being collected? We cannot sustain any more debt if we don't control the looting and the waste that is going on. There's no way. This is. I mean, we're all Nigerians. How can we justify morally that a country is having a great debate on paying 18,000 naira as a minimum wage when somebody is being paid almost $30 million naira a month? And
Thank
the same person. So how do we manage this money? Do we get a loan just
Very
for the
much
heck of the loan, and then it goes down to the drain again, and then we'll be stuck with that being paid, and then the consequences that come with it.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Prof, do you want to respond to this?
Yes, can I just say very quickly that there are maybe considerations that you really need to bear in mind when you're talking about Chinese loan. I can tell you authoritatively, and of course, I'm happy to be proved wrong, that there is no scope for carrying Chinese money. The reason is that the Chinese keep their money, they pay for the services themselves, they buy the equipment, they pay for the labor, and literally they are the contractors, they are the lenders, they are the contractors. And they will not give Nigerian government the money. They will not give Nigerian minister the money. So there's no way you go to China to collect the money either. So anybody thinking of embezzling Chinese loan, I think it would be a waste of time to go along that route because it's not going to happen. The same thing World Bank. You know, that's what they call disbursement. There's a way these things are done these days in recognition of the possibility of the money being frittered away. So everybody recognizes that fact. So people make allowances to ensure that it doesn't happen. Certainly not their money. So from that point of view, I don't think we have anything to worry about. I will say to you, don't worry about anybody carrying Chinese money. Nobody will carry Chinese money because it's in China. The money is in China. And because the money is in China, you can't go to China to carry the money. So don't worry about that.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Let's take another question from Ayokunle Fabwemi, please. If you can unmute yourself and start your video, that would be nice.
Thank you very much, Sylvester, for a good job done so far. But I want you to specifically address the subject matter of what is neocolonialism, imperialism, and hostile takeover, and juxtapose these within the context of our discourse on China loans and the unfortunate track record thus far globally of China and nation states. The other aspect I would like you to comment on is for you to elucidate on your understanding of economic hitman or hitmen concept and their roles in Nigeria within the last 3-4 decades. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ayoke, nice to see you again. First of all, let me say that we have to contextualize this discussion so that it makes a lot of sense. We are looking at borrowing from China. We are looking about the utilization of that borrowing. We are looking at the capacity of the country to pay back. Those are the critical issues. Now, when you bring concepts like economic hitman, neo-colonialism, imperialism, and all that, it brings a lot of coloration that evokes emotion to the point that we get distracted from the substance of the debate. Now, I have said it before in this discussion that I am not sure that the intentions of the Chinese is essentially to plot and position themselves in such a way that they will be in the pole position to take over Nigeria at the appropriate time, particularly if there was a default. Now, the question that we should be addressing our mind to is, are we borrowing too much? The answer, I think there's a consensus that yes, we are borrowing too much. I must say also that I am not here to speak for the government. I don't work for the government, so I don't have the numbers. But I'm giving you the parameters, the principle upon which borrowing is done. Now, if borrowing is done on the principle of sustainability and there are processes, including the approval of the representative of the people, and that is National Assembly, there is no way, government of Nigeria will take any loan without the National Assembly saying we agree. And you expect National Assembly to agree only if they are convinced about the debt sustainability and they ask the right questions and get the right answers. And once they are convinced, they say, yes, okay, we support. Now, I am also mindful of the fact that the National Assembly will ask those questions that you've just asked me to the government. It's only when they get the right answer that they will say, yes, we will go ahead. Unless what you are suggesting is the National Assembly is a rubber stamp National Assembly and they're not doing their work. But that, I don't agree.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fabumi, do you have a follow-up question or do we move on to the next question?
Sylvester has cleverly dodged answering the question of the role of economic hitmen within the Nigerian space. I still recall that not too long ago, a neophyte economic hitman Minister of Finance said that the issue of entering into recession, that recession was just a word. And when you look at what we have gone through thus far, it is clear that the data that is usually spewed out by public officers and those who discuss economics and the political economics of loans and grants and or aids are usually very colorful. If you look and contextualize the Chinese facilities thus far, and it's already alluded to the fact that neither the money nor the multiplier effects in terms of the labor that is deployed, the technology deployed, is ever shared with the Nigerian state and the Nigerian people. everything resides with the Chinese. Then, if you now have clauses and interactions that you cannot safely justify the multiplier effects, we need to be very careful and address this. It is not emotional.
Okay, Kunle, I would say that all things being equal, what you are saying is absolutely correct, all things being equal. But as you know, all things are never equal. But that said, there is something that you really need to understand these days. There is no information that you require on any government transaction that you cannot get online. If you go online, all you do, go to DMO website, key in Nigeria's borrowing from China. It will give you all the figures. You have opportunity to interrogate the data. So don't believe anything that any government official tells you. You can actually verify it and you can actually investigate it. So my take is that while some figures may appear not to be real because it is not as big as we want it to be. For example, I know that we have total debt of about 86 billion US dollars. Of that, the foreign debt is about 30 billion dollars. The question is, how much is the Chinese component of this loan? That is really, so when you start breaking it down, you begin to see the way things are. And I said at the beginning in this interview that the local loans are more, by far more. In fact, I am more worried. I am more worried about local loans than even foreign loans. The reason why I'm more worried about local loans is that the interest rate is a lot higher at the local level. But at the international level, it's only a ceiling of 2.5%. But in the local loan, you get the interest rate of up to 18%. So we have issues at the local level, but nobody's addressing it because it's local and we. No, I think it's a holistic thing that we really need to look at so that we can put it in a better perspective. I did have opportunity to total up the number, how much money we have taken so far from China compared to what we have globally for external loans, and juxtaposing that with domestic loans. So we really need to put things in context so that we don't get unnecessarily excited. You are on mute, Daniel. Daniel, you're on mute. Unmute yourself, Daniel.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, well, thank you very much, Prof. You're calling on Muhammad Ali Baba to ask the next question, please. Muhammad.
Thank you very much. Yeah, truly, I'm truly happy to have the opportunity to be on this, to be listening to the Prof. And he has actually explained a lot of things and made clear all the cobwebs and a lot of propaganda that has been established. Now, my point is, and the only question I want to ask is whether there are other alternative sources of finance that the Nigeria could equally have gotten that are either much cheaper than or better terms than that of China. Because personally, I feel a lot of this is by propaganda. It's not like the continuation of the past Cold War. But now that you have made a lot of these points clear, are there alternative sources of finance that we could have taken that would have been better than that of China? That's my question.
Yes, I think the cheapest source of loan is from the World Bank. World Bank ranges between 0.75% to 1%. So that is by far the cheapest source of borrowing. However, like I said again in the course of this interview, the envelope for Africa and what is provided for Nigeria may not be enough for our needs. But overall, the cost of loan, like as I said, by the stipulations of the fiscal responsibility law is 2.5%. Whereas if you get ISPO from one of the commercial banks, the rate could be as high as 17%, 18%, sometimes 20%. So in terms, when you see government going towards external loan, our external loan is less than 30%, 40% of our indebtedness as a country. So people, maybe it's a strategy to uh, reduce the high cost of local borrowing. I don't know, but to answer your straight question, the cheaper source is the World Bank, which is usually about 0.75% to 1%, compared to China that goes as high as 2%. But beyond these concessionary windows, it's very difficult to find. As a matter of fact, government is not allowed to go outside the concessionary window.
If I may add a follow-up to this question, when we compare foreign loan and local loans, despite the disparity in the interest rate, we also have to consider that this foreign loans is in dollars, but the local loans is in naira. So people also wonder, would it not be better to raise loans locally rather than borrowing? If you compare the exchange rate 3 years ago and the exchange rate now, and then you consider how much you are really paying for these foreign loans. Another option people have also suggested is PPP. Why wouldn't the government go into a PPP agreement and then have these projects funded in that way? What would be your response, Prof?
Well, first of all, if you look at the issue of quantum, I'm converting the local loan into dollars so that you can have a feel of the difference. I'm saying to you that the foreign loan is about 30 billion or less. The total loan is about 86 billion US dollars. So that is the first thing. Two, you are asking about interest rate. Naturally, interest rate is a factor. But again, another addition attraction for foreign loans is the issue of moratorium. You can take loan today and you don't pay anything for another 10 years. That gives you some cushion. So there are all sorts of reasons why governments go for foreign loan. But that's one side. On the other side, when you say government borrowing from the private sector, you are running the risk of crowding out the private sector, crowding out the SMEs, those who will need to borrow money, because private sector would rather borrow, lend to government than to SMEs or indeed private sector, because government payment is assured, but it's not. So it's a balance. As an economic manager, you have to balance the needs of the economy, both your own needs and the needs of other borrowers in the economy. So it's important.
We thank you. We'll soon be coming to the end of this program. If you have questions, please, now is the time to either make your point or ask your questions. We are seeing another hand again from Kolumba Obala, please. So let's give him another opportunity to take another bite.
Thank you, Mr. Elombah. I hope I'm not getting a lion's share of the time.
Well, I'm not saying any other. So.
Prof, my concern has always been, we've known that in Chinese projects, they get you the loan, they do the project, they use their own engineers and everybody else to do the project. And at the end of the project, their engineers are dispersed within that country. That has been their track record in every country they've been to.
Yeah, they do what?
They leave their workers inside that country where they did the work.
Okay.
Within a short time, a section of that country becomes Chinese. Go to Jamaica. It's clear. You will see a full-grown Chinese man or Chinese man, but he's a Jamaican. And what these people do is to find abode for 1 point something billion people to decongest China. Now, having said that, what safeguards are the Nigerian government putting in place for these contracts, knowing fully well that this is their pattern in every way they venture? You cannot give me $1, meanwhile you're taking $5 back. Most of the illegal mining that are done in Nigeria are Chinese. And when they come in, they don't go. If they stay back, that is something that they are looking for. And they're getting it. And that's why they don't leave. There's no monitoring. We don't have any meaningful immigration policy. Or
Let's
monitoring
allow Prof to answer now. Let's allow Prof to answer now.
But,
how do we monitor the usage of these loans and the functions of the project?
Well, first of all, I sincerely appreciate your apprehension, but let's keep the argument on track about borrowing. You know, when you talk about people relocating and not coming back and all that, you are opening a can of worm, which we don't want to go there. But that said, let me go back on the issue of funding of Chinese projects. It is important to know that while the conditions for the borrowing may not be as cheap or as easy as we would like it to be, we would like to have the money, we would like to build the projects ourselves, we would like to do so many things ourselves. But let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever seen a Chinese abandoned project anywhere in the world? The answer is no. It is against their law to abandon a contract or a project anywhere in the world. So if there are abandoned projects, it's definitely not from the Chinese loan. So it is actually easier to get your money, build a railway, get it operating, generate enough revenue to pay back. Now, let me tell you something that I quarrel with personally. I went to Kaduna with the new train, Abuja Kaduna train, beautiful train. Very sweet, the quality, very nice. But I was shocked that they were charging 1,500 naira. My first reaction is, how on God's earth is the government going to generate enough revenue to pay back the loan? I think that is the first thing. What we perhaps need to do is to take government out of these operations and allow the private sector to run these things like business. That is another argument altogether. But as long as government is running business, how can somebody pay 3,000 naira first class to go to Kaduna on a very comfortable train? That is a critical issue. The issue is not the Chinese. The issue is the management of our assets. And that is the subject for a different day. We can heap all the blames on the Chinese. We can talk about the Chinese coming here and refusing to go. That's fine. It's a legitimate argument. But the issue is, I have never seen an abandoned project by the Chinese. It does not happen. Now, if the Chinese build an asset for us, it is our duty and responsibility to take over the asset and manage professionally in a way that will be economically viable. That is really what is missing. And that is the focus. That should be the focus of the debate.
Thank you very much. We have only a few minutes remaining, but let's have a due to Esiobo, please, to ask his questions, and then we'll be rounding up. Mr. Esiobo, or what? I don't know whether
it's the Professor Esiobo. I know, Dr.
Okay, okay.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Monye, for the fantastic presentation. So you've made a lot of case, more or less like an advocate for the Chinese loan. So do you have any hesitations at all, or any concerns or worries? In other words, flip the coin and let us know if you have any concerns with the scope, the scale, and the operations of the Chinese loans that we're taking. Not long ago, I hosted the Minister of Science and Tech here in Florida, and he did enunciate some concerns. The current minister. And so that would make me think that there are certain concerns. He mentioned to us during his presentation that some of the Nigerian contracts have been in Chinese, and that they're uncomfortable with that. And some of the terms they don't really know until issues arise. And he was actually promoting the president's executive order that prefers diaspora handling projects rather than having Chinese or other foreigners. So let me make it very brief. What are your concerns? Do you have any at all? And how can we address those?
Well, I have a general concern. The concern that I have is not about contracting the loan or building the projects. I have two concerns, as a matter of fact. One is the amount of loans being contracted overall, whether it is private sector or public sector, whether it's local or foreign. I have concerns about that. Second point is that we are not making sufficient provision for the management of these assets. These assets are required, they are needed assets. The big question is, are we able to maximize the benefits accruable from these assets? My answer is no. Let me give you a typical example. If you go to the international airport in Abuja, anybody who's flown through that airport will tell you it's a world-class airport. Anybody who has gone abroad, either London, Dubai, or anywhere, will tell you that that airport is grossly underutilized. Now, how can you build an airport of that magnitude, of that quality, comparable with most airports in the world, and you are not deriving benefit, financial benefit from that investment? That is my concern. But I am not privy to the plans of this government to tell you exactly what their plans are. Similarly, I've mentioned the railway line from Abuja to Kaduna. Again, it's being run by government. We are not going to make it. There is no place for government in business. As long as government is hogging onto these assets, then we are not going to make it. So it doesn't make sense to borrow to build an asset that you run down. That is really the critical question. The question, therefore, is not whether we are borrowing. The question is what we do with the borrowing. Government has no business running any of these assets. Government should play the role of an enabler rather than the role of an operator. As long as government is there, we're wasting our time. That's my personal position. And I think we need to have a culture change, a change of mindset as to what it is that government is doing with these assets that are needed, these assets that are being developed, and yet we develop it, we'll hang on to the assets. Let me give you an example of some of these challenges. I remember in 2007, just before President Obasanjo left office, he tried to concession or privatize, I'm not sure whether it's concession or privatization, of Kaduna refinery to Dangote. And everybody say, hey, you're selling the silver spoon. In fact, we were in trouble. We sold the country's asset. And the late president, bless his soul, President Yaradua, came to office, canceled the transaction. And what do we have? We have Kaduna Refinery. It has not moved an inch. In fact, they are spending billions just to keep it idle for the last 13 years or so. The same Dangote has now said, okay, government, take your property. I am going to do my own. He's doing his refinery somewhere in Lagos. And everybody, every night they say, now you can see we'll have refinery. We'll have refinery. That is the problem we have. Some years ago, Transcorp Hilton was owned 100% by federal government until Transcorp Group took over. Today is one of the most profitable hotels in the whole of African continent. So we really need to begin to think of not getting the money to build them, but how do we run these projects to be comparable to what we find in Dubai and elsewhere? That, for me, should be the debate. And I'd like to engage in that debate.
Thank you very much, Prof. I don't know whether Siobo has a follow-up question. Okay, she's muted now. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. It's been a very engaging evening, and we thank everyone who has contributed to ask questions and to make their own contributions. It's been some of us have been wondering about whether this loan is ceding Nigerian sovereignty, but Prof has wonderfully clarified that position to us. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having you on another issue in the nearest future. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for listening.
All right. Thank you, Elombah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.